Hello, so we're going to go into a pretty detailed Necromancer tank guide here, mostly over the skills and how to use this build and why a Necromancer tank is a good option. We're not going to talk too much on the gear in this. Tank and gear is pretty standard, but I will talk about some interesting options that might not be viable for other tanks, but will be good for a Necromancer tank. So we're just going to jump straight in to have a little look at the character itself. If we open up the character sheet here, we are Nord, so we do get quite a bit of health in the passives as well. So we don't have to spec very heavily into health, so I've got a fairly evenish split here. So I have a really good amount of stamina and health to draw from, and the magic pool is pretty good. Ideally, I'd suggest that you have over 15,000 magic, over 20,000 stamina, and ideally for health, you need to be about between 35 and 37,000. That's the kind of ideal threshold that you want to be hitting there. Any more is kind of wasted. You will need a little bit more in specialist trials. For example, as a main tank in Vast Hard mode, you want to hit about 40k because the boss almost does hit pretty hard, and you can get a few stacks of mechanics on you, so it gives you that extra bit of buffer. But for pretty much everything else, you're going to be looking at 35 to 37, especially in examples like Cloud Rest. You need your health to be lower because when you get a healing debuff on you, you need to be healed to full, so having higher health is going to be very counterproductive. Don't need any more. No point being a fully selfish tank. The Necromancer is very sturdy, so a lot of what we're going to do is going to be supporting our groups and our teams for maximum efficiency. So this is the health and stamina shared there. We're going for the Atronach Munderstone on this one. Like we said, we do have a lot of health as a Necromancer anyway, so we'll get the big magic recovery here. Atronach is the best. If you do find you are struggling still with your health, you can go into the Lord, but I do highly recommend the Atronach as the main Mundus here. I have played about with the Mundus that boosts you max stamina as well, just to have a bigger pool to draw from, but you don't really need it, as sustain overall with this build is very good. Having a quick look at the food, so we're going to use the Bewitched Sugar Skulls. It's tri-food with health recovery. It is one of the best, if not the best, tank food you can get. But if you don't have access to this, then the Crown tri-food or regular tri-food is perfectly fine. And in regards to potions as well, we just use tri-potions. Essence of Health is the crafted one, but if you notice, it gives you health, recovery, magic, recovery, stamina, recovery. And you can craft these by using Lorkhan's Tears, Bugloss, Columbine, and Mountain Flower. And yeah, you can craft those potions, or you can just use the crown potions that come as the daily rewards, etc., because they do pretty much exactly the same thing. A specialist potion here is the essence of speed or lingering health. Either one is fine. This is great in Cloud Rest when you do get things like healing debuffs on you to give you major vitality, lots of health restored per second, and a bit of a speed boost as well. These are a lot more expensive to make though. You don't have to use the Mother of Pearl to get the speed boost in it. If you just want the regular lingering health, then it's Lorkhan's Tears, Butterfly Wings, Scrib Jelly, and Beetle Scuttle. So it's not very expensive to make the regular lingering health, but if you want to use the Essence of Speed for the speed boost, unfortunately you do have to use Powdered Mother of Pearl, and they are very expensive. Having a quick look at the race and whatnot as well. We are, as we said, a Nord, so if we have a little look at the Nord skills here, maximum health, which is great here, and an immunity to chill status effect. The increase of maximum stamina, which is great. One of the main reasons we do run Nord is this passive here. When you take damage, you gain 5 ultimate every 10 seconds. The whole point of a necro tank is to generate a lot of ultimate, be a massive, I guess the common use word is battery as for an ultimate. You're throwing out ultimates all of the time. You generate lots and lots of ulti through your passives, your active skills, and the quicker we can get that up, that means more Warhorn uptime or more Atronachs, so there's a lot more damage in the group, so you're really providing a hell of a lot of support to the group. So this is the reason why I think Nord is the best option to go here. Not only that for the ultimate gen, but you also get nearly 4,000 extra physical and spell resistance. It makes you a lot more tanky, a lot more bulky. Now on my Dragonite tank, I do go for an Argonian. You can use an Argonian on this. Argonians are still good. The potion cooldown in turbo build is really, really good. Just getting your potions online and getting insane sustain with that. But I find as a Necro tank, you actually have a very, very good amount of sustain anyway. So you don't need to go Argonian. Being a lot more bulky, and a lot of your skills will also make you a lot more tanky as well. You're an iron wall with a fast amount of ulti, so you can get a lot of damage out there and you can take a lot of hits as well. So we're going to go into a bit of detail with the skills that we have on here. So on our front bar, we've got Heroic Slash. This will give minor main to enemies and give you the minor heroism, so we get that fast ulti, which is another great point of the character. Hungry Scythe, this is going to be our burst heal. So what we do is, it deals a little bit of damage, but you get a heal of 5.6k, and you get an additional heal for everything else that you hit as well, and also a heal over time. This crits, and it does hit for a lot harder, heals for a lot more than it says. Kind of like the way that Green Dragon Blood works, I often find myself, if I'm on quite low health, one hit of the scythe and I'm pretty much back up to full. Especially if you've got a lot of trash and a lot of mobs hitting you and you're going down, one hit of that scythe, it will blast you straight back up to full, and you'll have a really big heal over time on you as well. So this is our Dragonite's version of Green Dragon Blood, but the only thing is we do actually have to hit something with this to heal. Bear that in mind. If you're away from anything and you're taking damage, you actually need to hit the enemy with the scythe in order to be able to heal with it. Ransack, we use this taunt to get the minor protection. It also puts major fracture on the enemy, so the Stamdides will do a lot more damage, and it will taunt them for 15 seconds. You can also take the other morph of this to put the major breach if your group doesn't have Ellie Drain. A good example of this is when you're running dungeons, 3 DDs and a tank. To save on that, you could put the fracture on this. There's other scenarios in different trials where you might want to swap the morph, so this will be flexible. You will swap this back and forth, but for the majority of things, the minor protection will be the way that you want to go with this. Mortal Coil, this is a flexible spot, so we can change this out for something, one of the other skills that we will be looking at in just a moment. So what this does is it siphons a corpse, so any corpse that could be dropped from an ad or one of your skills, you'll put a beam onto it and then you'll heal yourself. It's a pretty good heal over time, about 1,000 a second, and also you restore stamina. So as you guys may or may not know, while tanking or with anything, while you're blocking, you do not restore stamina. It will just stay on what it is while you're blocking. But if this is active, you'll actually be restoring stamina while the siphon is active, so it's a good way to get a bit of recovery as well to keep up your resources. And while slotted, you get an extra bit of healing as well. So I like to keep this on the front bar, just so, you know, it lasts 12 seconds. You can just keep an eye on it, and then when a corpse happens, you don't have to switch to your back bar to try and equip a siphon again to get it back online, because that can be risky. So I like to keep it on the front bar, so you can just face the corpse, get that beam attached, and you've got your heal over time, and you've got your stamina recovery as well then. You've also got the Spirit Guardian here. I keep this on the front bar because this is a great skill, something that you want to keep up quite as much as you possibly can, 100% if possible. There are 2 ways that you can take this ability as well. So what it does, it gives you a heal over time. It's 2k every 2 seconds, so a nice little tick as well. And while active, you take 10% less damage essentially because it gets transferred to the spirit. So the other morph of this, it doubles the heal, but it halves the time. So you get 2k a second instead of 1k a second, and it only lasts 8 seconds altogether. So pros and cons of both. So the reason why we can take this one, obviously 10% less damage taken is amazing, and it lasts 16 seconds, so you have to recast it less often. So that's one less thing on your mind you have to think about. If you're new to the Necromancer tank, and you're just learning about tanking or just getting into this role, I highly recommend using this version. The less damage that you take and the longer tick time, so you have to keep it up, you know, you have to manage it less, will be a lot easier for you as you are learning the role. The reason why we take the other morph, not only is the heal on ourselves bigger, so you know, if we are getting slapped down quite heavily, it can push us back up a little bit, but it's the 8-second duration. The reason for this is when it dies, it creates a corpse, and if it's dying quicker, that means we have more corpses, which means we have more ways to generate ulti, because we have an ability that takes corpses and turns it into ultimate. So if it's dying quicker, that means there's more corpses, more ultimate, more warhorns, and so forth. So if you're more experienced with the build, I recommend going for the other morph and just going with that quick cast, 8 seconds up, and then you can generate the corpses. But if you're still learning, definitely go with the 10%. We go with Warhorn. This does change depending on how many Necros are in your group. If you have 2 or 3 Necros running in your raid group, I recommend taking the Warhorn. And if you don't have Necros, or you only have 1 Necro in the group, then I recommend taking the Pestilent Colossus here, which will put major vulnerability up for 8 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 30%. So just be flexible with this. Depends entirely on your group composition. Generally, the Colossus does add more group damage than the Warhorn does in most situations. But if there's things that are going to be split and people are focusing on different things, killing different things, or if you've got enough Necros anyway, then Warhorn is definitely the way to go for this. So this is the front bar. Again, I say Mortal Coil is the only real flex spot on this bar. You can also swap Spirit Guardian to the back bar if you really want to, but I like it on the front just to keep it up. Back bar then, Beckoning Armor. So this will give you your major resolve, so the extra 5.2k physical and spell resistance. While active, it also chains enemies in every 3 seconds, anything that hits you, and it creates a corpse on death. So the reason why we run this, not only is it useful to have the ability to chain things in, and it's our source of our major resolve, but it's creating that corpse. The more corpses, the more ultimate that we're able to generate then. In some situations, this will not be the right skill to take. For example, if you're tanking the twins in VMOL, you could get hit by an ad that you don't want to have chained into your side, and if that hits you and gets chained to your side, then you could be in a bit of trouble there. So ideally, you don't want to use this. In a situation where we need to change this skill out, I highly recommend swapping it for balance. You get your major resolve and major ward exactly as the armor gives you, except you also restore magic as well, which will help you sustain out a lot as well. So it's either going to be balance or Beckoning Armor. You have to run one. It depends which the situation demands, but it's just one or the other, whichever one you choose to go with. Dead and Pain, this is again a choice of which one you want to go. I've got this set up now to show a more beginner coming into the class. So what this will do is you can absorb all of the corpses on the ground. You'll generate 2 ultimate and heal for every corpse that you take, and you get extra healing for the more corpses. And while that healing is ticking on you, you have major protection. That's 30% less damage that you take, which is a huge decrease in damage. And this will be active quite frequently because we have 2 skills that generate corpses, and also bear in mind the fact that when enemies die, they generate corpses as well. So it's great to keep this up. It's throwing up our ultimate very quickly, and it's giving us major protection. The other morph of this, and it doesn't give you major protection, but it does give you 6 ultimate instead of 2, which is fantastic. If you're experienced with the build, then I definitely recommend going for that, because you're generating a hell of a lot more ultimate, more warhorns, more damage, and so on. So once you're very used to how the build plays out, especially in things with the large trash fights, you can get so much ulti uptime. Especially in VHOF, when we're going into the 3rd boss, for example, when there's all those spiders, I can drop 3 or 4 warhorns with myself having them with 100% uptime. It's crazy good. Definitely recommend taking it, but situations may call for taking this as well. If you're tanking the Rakat on hard mode, for example, you could be tanking Zamaja. When those heavy attacks come in, you can give yourself that 30% less damage taken, which is going to be very big in those heavy hitting scenarios. In a fire, this is our range taunt. Every tank should have a melee taunt and a range taunt. This can allow you to taunt adds quite quickly at a distance when you can't physically hit them. self-explanatory there. Blockade, every single tank should also be running this. We are running a Destro staff on our back bar. The reason why we do this is because we have a Crusher enchantment on our staff. On a one-handed weapon, enchantments only have half value, so that's why we put them on a staff. And if we have our Blockade active, we can be on our front bar with our sword and shield, and the enchantment will still trigger. The reason why we go for a lightning staff is because it gives the off-balance uptime and concussion, which means better damage for the DDs, and we can just rip heavy attacks to get incredible amounts of resources back as well. Some instances may require you to run a frost staff, so I do recommend also running a frost staff, having one of the same sets that you're using, Alkosh for example, because there could be scenarios again like Cloud Rest, you could get overloaded, you could just need that extra resistances on that back bar, so I recommend using an ice staff as well, just so you have the option of both. This is a flex spot here, Avid Boneyard. What it does is it just puts an AoE on the ground. The whole reason why we run this is because you can actually activate the synergy of the AoE that you put down. The whole reason why this is good is because if your Alkosh has run out and you don't have a synergy available to activate, you could just activate this ability, smash the synergy, and your Alkosh has already procced on the enemy. It does quite a bit of damage as well. I've critted for like 10-12k on this. Doesn't seem a lot, but as a tank, you know, when you're adding all these extra bits of damage and then the Alkosh uptime, it really makes a huge difference to the group as well. It is a flex spot. If you are running a group and you do have a lot of synergies, you don't need to run this. There are other abilities which we will go over that you can run in place of this as well. I like to put the Resurrection ulti on the back bar as well. I can res 3 dead allies, and it's got a really big area of effect as well. I will show you quickly how big that area of effect is so you can see it. So if you're in a difficult trial, if you're in a prog or anything like that and some people do die, then you can just instantly pick them back up as well. So this is a great option for those emergency situations. It is a very expensive ultimate to cast, but we generate ultimate very quickly with this build anyway. And the reason why we go for renewing is because you also restore a huge amount of resources when you do res allies as well. Going over flexible skills and passives then. So we've only got reusable parts here, so when our Spirit Mender, which is our healing ghost, dies, it reduces the recast by 50%. It just makes it that bit cheaper. Alternative skill here is Grave Grasp. I haven't got this morphed yet, but you can morph it if you want. Essentially what it does is like the Dragonite Talons. It throws an attack in front of you, and it basically roots anything in place. So if you have a little look how it works here. So all of those AoEs in front of you, that will root anything in place that it hits, and it puts minor maim on them. So if you're doing the first boss of VMOL, for example, after things have been chained in, you can just root them in place and they won't be going anywhere then. So that's why we have this skill as a flex spot. And then the passives, whenever an enemy dies, you restore resources. Reduces the damage taken while you have an ability active. All of these are great passives. Increases your healing received and your max health, so we want to take all of these. Another alternative skill here is Expunge and Modify. It cleanses you for 2 negative effects and you restore resources for doing it. It's a nice passive as well, that it reduces the cost of your abilities while it's slotted. This is great in instances where you need to purge. I like it in the first boss of VHOF. I like to take it into Vast Hard mode as well. So it's a tiny cost. 2k health is really nothing, and you can just cleanse those negative effects from you and get a good bit of stamina and magic back as well. Much cheaper than Purge because you don't have to spend your magic to do it. So I really like this skill over Purge. Bear in mind though, this only purges yourself. It doesn't actually purge teammates, so it's in those situations where you need to look after yourself, not everybody else. And then when you have a negative effect on you, increases your healing. That's nice to have. While your abilities are slotted, your critical chance with all healing abilities increases by up to 20%, so more healing, fantastic. Whenever you use an ability on a corpse, you generate more ulti, so that's going to be when we absorb ulti with our Necrotic Potency or our Siphon. Either one, that'll start generating more and more ulti for us. So as you can see here, we are getting a crazy amount of ultimate on this character. And then more recovery just for having our Spirit Mender active, which we're going to anyway. So they're the passives we want there. One-handed shield, an alternative skill here is shield charge. This is for the last boss in VHOF where you need to close the distance very, very quickly. You will need this if you plan on doing that content. And then we're going to need all of the passives in one-handed and shield. Essentially it's giving us reduced cost for blocking, being able to block more, etc. So definitely take all of these passives. Destruction Staff, we're going to need Crushing Shock as an alternative. Again, this can be slotted up here in R1 if you need it. This is our interrupt at a distance, so some situations may require you need to be interrupting adds or bosses, so we'll take Crushing Shock there. Elemental Drain as well, sometimes you may need to drain if you're off tanking in a Vet Cloud Rest, for example, to have Ellie Drain just so you can help out with that as well. And then increase your chance to apply burning, concussed and chilled effects. You'll definitely want to take that. And when we kill enemies, we restore magic as well. While we have blockade active, we're very likely to be able to restore the magic because we want to keep blockade up as 100% of the time, so we definitely want to take that as well. Heavy armor, we want every passive in heavy armor. It gives us extra health, extra resists, all that kind of good stuff, so definitely take all of those. Fighter's Guild, as an alternative skill we want Silver Leash. This will chain enemies in because we don't have an inherent chain on this, so this is another way to pull enemies in. It does the same as the bone armor does, but it doesn't have a cooldown, so if you've got that bone armor up you can get all of these adds chained in super fast, which will really help your DDs nuke everything very quickly. And then we want Banish the Wicked. When this is fully leveled up you get 9 ultimate whenever you kill a undead, Daedra or werewolf. More ultimate, more damage for the group, as we said. Mage's Guild, we have this leveled up for balance. Reduces the cost, so it makes balance cost 5.1k instead of 6k health, so it makes it that bit cheaper for us, so we definitely want this. I do recommend taking these as well. Increases the duration of your Mage Guild abilities, so when you do run balance your Major Resolve lasts longer as well, so I take those if you do want to go down that route. Alternative skills here, I do apologize, I don't have a lot of skills unlocked on this character. He is very recently built, he's only a few days old, so I don't have everything entirely unlocked on him yet, but you need the Blood Altar and you want the Morph for Overflowing Altar. This is for instances where you want to put the altar down because your healers can't run it. Fast hard mode again is a really good example there. You can get Bone Shield and you can morph that up for a big damage shield for your group as well. If you're running 4-man content, you can have this slotted just to help the survivability of your DDs as well. Healing Orb is a great way to add synergies to the group as well and do an extra bit of healing for the group, but the flex spots are quite limited, so I haven't unlocked this yet. And then you want your Undaunted passives for the extra overall resources and the extra sustain from synergies. You don't really need any extra skills from here other than the Warhorn. You can take Vigor if you want the extra stamina heal, but you have really good heals on this character anyway. For the support skill line I do recommend aiming to unlock Purge and Guard. They can be useful in certain trials as well. But other than that, that's the main skills that you need. Not provisioning, sorry. I do recommend also leveling up Alchemy and getting the Alchemy passive that increases the duration of potion effects. This is because when you take a potion, you want to keep that recovery up all the way. Like I said, this character is still pretty new, so I haven't unlocked everything yet. But you want that Alchemy passive just to purely keep that recovery time all the way up. Now, we're not going to go too detailed into the actual gear itself. It's very standard for pretty much everything to do with tanking. It's going to be Alkosh, Eben or Yolnakrin. They are the main sets you want to use. The reason why I've got healthy physical resistance Alkosh here is just because I was tanking, main tanking Bass hard mode, and I wanted to make sure my resists are at max and I had that extra bit of health. Ideally, for pretty much all of the content, you're going to want either 2 infused, 1 harmony, or 3 infused, with all magic recovery enchantments. That is the best way to go as a Nord. You get a huge amount of magic recovery, so you'll always have enough magic to keep yourself healed and keep your abilities casting and ticking. I do recommend getting a set of Alkosh jewelry in pretty much the majority of traits, just so you can switch it up all depending on your content. You need the Swift if you're off tanking in VCR. Harmony is really great as well to get that big burst heal from Blood Altar and the Orbs, and getting lots of synergy resources back from shards. So all the different traits will be very, very useful for you to have, but ideally for the majority of things it will be infused with magic recovery enchantments for this character. That's definitely how you want to go, so you have a huge amount of magic recovery. But Alkosh is the main set you want to be taking here. So in addition to the Ebon and Yolnahkrin, which you will be using on the body pieces, I do kind of like trying Dragon Guard on this character as well. Ignore the traits, these are just what I've quickly thrown together as spare parts for this character, but ideally you will want sturdy in the small pieces, infused in the big pieces. So infused legs, infused chest, and infused head, and they will be with the triglyphs that you see here on the Stonekeeper, and you'll have maximum health glyphs on the small pieces then. So what Dragon Guard essentially does is it reduces the cost of ultis by 15%. So if we're generating ulti like crazy and it's costing us less, we're going to have a ridiculous amount of Warhorn uptime. So it's a really, really nice alternative set to take there. But I do recommend still going for the Ebon or Yolnahkrin setup on the body. There are a few other interesting pieces that you can take. You can take Torug's Pact, for example. You can take Grave Guardian. There's a few other little interesting pieces that you can try out for selfish builds, but I do highly recommend just going Alkosh 100% on the jewelry, weapons, and staff, and then playing about with your body pieces, whichever you feel more comfortable with. Monster sets, they can change up a lot. I like Stonekeeper, you get ridiculous amounts of sustain with this on this character. Bloodspawn is also absolutely fantastic because you generate more ulti with Bloodspawn. More ulti is exactly what the build is geared to do, so Bloodspawn's fantastic. But then you'll also need things like Earthgore and a few other bits and pieces. Symphony is really great to take. I know they're classed as healer sets, but they do come in very handy for those niche scenarios as a tank. So there's lots of different ways you can approach the monster sets as well, but either Stonekeeper or Bloodspawn I would say are the absolute best options to go for. In regards to the staff, you want this to be infused, not sharpened. Again, this is a new character made out of my spare parts. Please bear with me for the traits. An infused Crusher enchantment you want on the staff. That will be the best in slot. The bigger Crusher enchantment and the more uptime. So that's what you want to go for the staff. Same if it's an ice or a shock staff, either one, it doesn't matter, you want that infused Crusher enchantment. For the shield, it doesn't really matter too much what the enchantment is here. The infused with the triglyphs just means I get a bit more resources back when I activate the synergy. Obviously when you bar swap you lose those max resources, so you don't have to worry about them too much. You could go more max health for bigger burst healing. You could go more max stamina if you want the bigger resource return from shards, because it does scale off your highest resource. So the higher the resource, the higher amount of resources you get back, if that makes sense. Whether it be infused, whether it be sturdy, you could even go well fitted, because there are times you want to dodge roll heavy attacks, so reducing the cost of dodge roll will also help. Entirely up to you how you want to approach with the shield trait enchants as well. For the Mace of Alkosh, you want this to be with a decisive. The more ultimate generation of the decisive trait is definitely the best way to go. And the enchantment, you either want the weakening enchantment, reducing their damage done, or you want to run poisons. I like to run these poisons. Essentially what they do is you restore 235 magicka per second for 3.5 seconds. So it's really quite nice. You get just under 1,000 magicka back, and it only has a 10-second cooldown. When you think about it, it's only a 6.5 second because it's been triggering. So for like a third of the time this is going to be active, and you're going to be restoring your resources, which makes your sustain absolutely fantastic. If you are wondering how to craft these, it's Alkahest, Columbine, Lady Smock, and Dragonthorn, and then you can craft these poisons and they will help your recovery up times as well. So all these put together will really help you sustain with the infused magic recovery enchantments, with Stonekeeper or Bloodspawn, the poisons, and the Atronach Munderstone. You'll get a crazy amount of sustain back. We're just going to move away from people now just so I can show you a little something in regards to how these abilities work. So when you have one of these necro skills active, if I just reactivate it now, as you can see, nothing happens, the skills just normally reactivate. However, if I wait for at least half of the active time to go, so as you can see with the little ghost, more than half the time has run, but it's not run out, then I can reactivate it and it leaves a corpse. So it doesn't have to fully run out. As long as the over 50% of the time has passed. So with the ghost, it has a 14-second timer. So as long as there's 7 or less seconds on the ghost, I can reactivate it and it will produce a corpse for me. And there's that corpse, which I can absorb and get my major protection or whatever. So as long as half the time has run out, then you're definitely going to be able to generate your corpses. So, which makes it great with the intensive mender. You only need 4 seconds to generate, and then you can make that corpse. So it's a great way. You could be standing there, not even in battle or anything. What a horrible woman. Yeah. So yeah, and you can just generate lots of ulti by doing this. So it's a great way just to keep building up your ulti, even if you're not in battle. Just keep rotating these and you can just keep absorbing ulti and it'll go up and up. And it's a great way in battle. If I'm fighting something and shit, my Amenda's got 6 seconds, but I need my Siphon up, I can just recast it early and then bang, my Siphon's back online then. And then I can, yeah, that's essentially how it's going to work with this. And I'll quickly show you the Boneyard synergy as well, why that's a great skill to take. So with the Avid Boneyard, you just cast it and instantly you've got your own synergy, so you can just activate that and your Alkosh will proc on anything that you hit then. So that's essentially the Necro Tank in a nutshell. Just remember the key points of what we have on our bars and why. I like the Spirit Mender on the front bar. You can recast within half the time. Know your flex spots, know what to switch out for when, and whether you want to use the Warhorn or the Colossus is entirely up to you. Just give it a bit of time. If we have a look at our character sheet though, you know, we are right up there with our resists. You know, we're almost at max. Play about with skill points, you can reach max depending on what, you know, your champion points, you can reach that as well. It's a very bulky character. You take so much less damage, you know, with the intensive mender it's 10% less. With Dead and Pain active it's 30% less on that as well. All the resists that we have, it's a fantastic, very bulky class. You have incredible sustain as well. I do have some live streams on my channel as well if you want to watch any of that. It's a great way to see me using the Necro Tank in action. I've used it in Vet Cloud Rest, VHOF, all that kind of stuff. Vast Hard Mode, for example. So you can have a little look at that just to see how I run the character if you want to get an example to play it. But otherwise, yeah, that's essentially how we run the Necromancer tank.